Pop Culture Pastor.
Okay, Cody. You know, here's something I'm wondering currently. Is this version, are we the innies of ourselves or the outies in this studio?
Innies.
We're the innies. So if we were severed, the radio / podcast versions of ourselves would have no idea about what our outer versions do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which I do feel like this show is a great analogy for those of us that might compartmentalize a lot.
Yeah.
And that, like, as soon as I leave my office, I have basically severed myself from work and all the things that happened at work. And it's almost like a blank slate when I come home.
Yeah, having been friends with your outie for quite a while now, I know what you're mostly concerned about are reels, posts on X. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I'm just kidding, of course. But yeah, like Cody does serious work during the day. And some people do have jobs where, especially when you work with people, like wellness type stuff.
Yeah, health, mental health, like the HIPAA-bound entities, like you can't even, if you wanted to talk about it, you couldn't talk about it. You can talk in vagueness, but you can't give out anything that would be identifiers. So, like, you kind of do have to sever yourself and put up barriers.
Yeah. So we're already drawing some real world comparisons here. Hello, this is Pop Culture Pastor Watch-Alongs, and my name's Dave. Cody's here.
I am.
And we are here on Watch-Alongs this season to talk about season 2 of Severance.
I'm so excited. If I could binge this show, I would have already binged all the episodes.
Yeah, so it's weird. I came to it late after it came out the first time. And so I was able to binge it. In fact, my wife and I watched it together. We have 4 kids, and you don't get to watch as many shows together as you used to. And so the watching of this show coincided with sports camp.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And so we just had like this built-in evenings to ourselves for like a week. And we just binged our way through Severance season 1. This has been whatever that was, a couple years ago. But yeah, really dig this show. It was really a breath of fresh air, really something different. And the compartmentalization of the narrative is a fun little thing, obviously. And then, of course, as it gets through season 1, as the innies become a little bit more aware of, or want to become a little bit more aware, I guess, because they always knew that they had an outside life version of their life. But it kind of culminates into one of the better cliffhangers in recent memory.
Oh, yeah.
Where Mark S., in their excursion, they have found this way to get the innies outside, transfer them into the outie soul. We're not even really sure what we're dealing with, except for there's one body, there's one of them, and then they've severed their consciousness into the innie version and the outie version, the work version and the outside life version. And neither one of them, the consciousness never mixes.
So in this aspect, it reminds me of a movie that's getting Oscar buzz right now, and that is The Substance. Because essentially there's 2 individuals, but as the provider of the substance says, there really is just one. That you are one. You might have 2 completely separate lives, things going on, but you are one. So what happens to one will happen to the other. Take care of yourself.
Yep. So season 1 culminates in the innies getting a taste of the outie world for, brief moments.
What does the sky look like?
And they find out the big cliffhanger moment is Mark S. running for his sister, I think, or just in general, yelling to everyone she's alive because he has found out that his wife, who his outer self has known has been deceased, is actually one of the innies inside the Lumen Corporation. She's the wellness person.
She is.
And yeah, that's kind of how season 1 ends. So cut to episode 1 of season 2. It's been a minute, as Mr. Milkshake says, which I don't know how anyone doesn't call him Mr. Milkshake now for the rest of the show. But here we are. The show begins with Mark S. returning to the Lumen Corp and to his innie place. And when he gets there, he's running, so this is like a kind of a play on the first shot of the initial season where he's walking through the halls. Now he's running through the halls, and I think we're supposed to feel like the chaotic nature of it, I suppose. I felt bad for anyone with motion sickness issues.
My wife, she has an inner ear infection right now, so like motion sickness is kind of a deal for her, but like she was captivated by why he was running, and evidently Adam studied film of Tom Cruise running.
Oh, there you go.
And after reading that, I was like, it did remind me of Tom Cruise running, but like if a guy that was primarily just an office dude was trying to be like Tom Cruise.
It was like if, not to pick on Adam Scott, but it was like if Tom Cruise had just had a colonoscopy and then they asked him to run. He'd definitely do it because he's Tom Cruise.
Yes.
And he doesn't miss a chance to run, but it looked weird. He looked stiff.
If you just worked in an office all the time, I think you would look stiff too running. So it made perfect sense to me.
It does. It does make perfect sense, and I'm just having some fun with it. But it was disorienting. My wife had to stop watching and just asked me to tell her when it was done. But it was a surprisingly long segment of him running through these halls, which I think is supposed to give you like the maze-like quality of the mind. What exactly is it? It's almost like they were trying to depict just how complex the human consciousness is, what we're talking about. And so I think that's the reason for the length of it. Because at some point my wife was like, why is it so long? Why are they just showing running through endless halls that keep turning? And I'm like, I think it's supposed to be like a metaphor for our consciousness.
Potentially.
And the chaos that they're in. So he's running for a particular place, and that is the wellness room, which has completely been like, it's been washed off the wall. Then you see the little outline of the word, and it's gone.
No Miss Casey.
Yeah. Which, it's interesting because he has no emotional tie to her. I seem to remember at some point in the season there was maybe like a brief moment of connection they had.
Yes.
If I'm remembering that right. But like really, he has the innie of Mark S. has way more affection and, time with Helly.
That's what you would think.
But he's very intent on finding this wellness place. It's empty. By the way, did you notice the dude in the suit in the background?
Yes.
That's never really addressed. He's in the room that used to be wellness. You can see behind him in the hallway, there's a dude with a suit who's in the hallway, and then he leaves.
Yep.
And we have no idea who that was. And I was like, oh, here. It's the big bad, Cody.
It is. All these people that you thought were bad.
It's Mephisto.
They are just itty bitty players.
Yeah. So that was really interesting that we saw someone in the background. And then Mr. Milkshake shows up and we find out it's been 5 months.
And we get balloons.
Yeah, he gives them balloons. So wellness has disappeared. Mark heads back to macro data refinement.
Because, of course, why not?
Yeah, and instead of, his team, we've got these new people that are there, which admittedly was very fun.
Mark W. Here for the win.
Gwendolyn Y., played by Alia Shawkat of Arrested Development fame. Dario R., played by Stefano Carinanti, who's clearly Italian. And Mark W., played by Bob Balaban. And he's like, Bob Balaban, does that dude play anyone but Bob? Like, that dude is the same guy, and I'm here for it. Don't get me wrong. He's a legend. I can remember seeing him in like Seinfeld and Friends way back. So on Friends, he was Phoebe's dad. Do you remember that? I
have blocked it out.
Oh, man. So he's been around for a while, and he's always the same dude. But like, someday we're going to have a whole episode on character actors who play the same kind of character. Like, there's the character actors who play all sorts of different characters. That's just their expertise. And then there's the guy you bring in to be a certain type of dude. And that's what Bob Balaban is. And he's perfect. I mean, he steals these scenes.
He does.
When he suggests that Mark S. change his first name to avoid confusion, that was awesome. But that's really one of the things I love about Severance, is at heart, you've got a really dark show.
Oh, yeah.
Like, the themes they're playing around with, the story itself, this is dark stuff, and yet I'm laughing a lot. So he meets this new team, and it's all very disconcerting to him because he is not down with it, is Marquez. He wants his team. Mr. Milchick, by the way, is now the boss.
Goodbye, Patricia Arquette.
Yeah. What was her name?
Cobble.
Cobble. Miss Cobell.
Miss Cobell,
yeah.
Yes.
And that's the name of the episode, is something Miss Cobell. I can't remember. Anyways, Mr. Milkchick is the guy in charge, although we see some signs that, is he the guy in charge? Like, here's the funny thing about all this, because he's going to take him to Miss Cobell's old office, which is now his office. He's got the tiny little painting when Miss Cobell had the giant one.
Yes.
Are you aware? Did you notice that?
It
looks like, so weird on his wall.
Is this all we have?
It was like the size of a comic book insert.
Yes.
And he's got the computer that is got like the screensaver message that says Miss Cobell on it, which he's very perturbed about. He's very annoyed about. He wants that changed quickly. And that seems to be where most of, like, what I often with this company, I'm thinking of like the Office Space line. What is it you'd say you do here? Do any of these people do actual work? Or is it all this weird stuff?
Games.
What does Milkchick do?
Just hang out.
Oh, man. He was very concerned about the screensaver. Anyways, he tells him it's been 5 months. He's got this new team there, and Mark S. just isn't having it. He's not having it. Although there's some interesting information that I think we do need to share here in the exchange with the new people. Okay. And anytime you have something, just go ahead and jump in. I don't want to overrule you. Go past anything you want to talk about here. But yeah, so there's Gwendolyn and Mark W., who came from apparently more state-of-the-art places.
And they are very much in like the 70s or 80s.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, they start a discussion about their perpetuity wings, which the perpetuity wing we've seen had like wax figures. Mm-hmm. They talk about their perpetuity wing having animatronic Egans. It's like, oh boy, showbiz pizza. Here we go.
Yes.
But what really was interesting to me was what the Italian guy says. And Cody, this is going to bring me to my Kier-spiracy.
Kier-spiracy.
I got a Kier-spiracy right off the bat.
Okay.
The Italian guy talks about his perpetuity wing as having broom handles. He even have wax figures. Homes had broom handles, and he said their elevator was a rope. And I'm thinking, like, as he's saying that, I'm like, what era of time is this dude from? And then it hits me. Oh, wait a minute. What era of time are all these people from? The one people say this, but then I start thinking, why does Lumen itself, the Lumen they're at, have all this older looking technology?
Mm-hmm.
It's like early 80s tech.
At best.
Yeah. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, can they bring these innies from different times? Is that a thing they could do? And maybe to some of them it looks futuristic, but to I would think, but they don't know any better because their conscious has been severed.
Mm-hmm.
Because I would think if an Audi got in, the Audis we've seen, Mark S and Helly, they would think, oh, this tech looks dated. This is not what I was expecting to see. So that's my first Kier-spiracy of the season is I think some of these people may be from different times.
Time travel.
I think there's time travel in a way. I do. I think there's a Lumen. This is a cult, clearly. And I think they've been doing this for a while. And I think the innies can mix.
I love to think that the Italian guy might have been Donatello.
There you go.
Not the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, but the Renaissance artist.
Not Versace.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was what I got out of that scene. They kind of get to know each other. Then another new character shows up. This would be Miss Huang.
Who looks like she's 8 and everyone says it.
Yeah, well, okay. But this is what I mean, where I'm chuckling, I'm laughing, but this is dark, bro.
Mm-hmm.
And the innies all sense it. They're like, this is a kid. Is this legal? Like, what is happening? Now, the actress, here's a fun fact, is 18 years old in real life, but she looks younger. And she's, by the way, I don't know who this actress is. And I'm not going to look it up. Sarah Bach.
I was going to say, I have it if you didn't, but yes.
She's fantastic. I mean, she holds her own in these.
She does.
But she's basically the new Milchick. She's kind of the assistant. And she shows up to kind of corral people and say, hey, you need to come with me, or Milchick wants to see you, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, that's weird.
We're not friends. I'm a manager or upper level.
When she keeps the boundaries.
Yes. I'm like, oh, snap. Poor Mark S.
That was amazing. Amazing line and delivery by the young actress there. But this is shockingly young for someone who's maybe severed, or maybe she's not. Maybe she's just an employee. Like Milchick claims to be not severed.
I feel he is severed.
I see it. I feel it is too. I feel like I don't know what to believe. We'll get into that in a few minutes because it gets crazier. Mark snaps, of course, during the team building exercise. He stops complying. He tries to sneak a note out on the Post-it framing Mark W. Puts it in his coat pocket, which the note itself was hilarious. I lost it. He says something about being a shambolic rube.
Yep.
You know, it's so stinking hilarious.
And it would be so Mark W. if Mark W. had wrote it.
And he tricks them into looking at something and then runs away, which is so childlike. But it gets interesting really fast. It stops being funny and gets interesting because he heads for the office and he gets the speaker out. He starts trying to talk to, quote unquote, the board. And you hear the static and he's screaming, please, they're my friends. You can't just make them disappear. And Cody, what'd you make of that? Do you think someone hurt him? And who's the someone? I want to know.
I think it's a placebo thing.
You think there's nobody there?
Yeah. And like the random commands that they do get might just be like computer generated. Because clearly Harmony was receiving back and forth dialogue when she was using the speaker last season. But I think that even that could be like, oh, you're not really talking to a real person.
Yeah, because the show wants you to believe, because what happens is it appears that it works. that
Yes.
he gets through to somebody, because the next thing we see is that Milchick's informing, okay, we're going to bring your friends back. And they come down the elevator one by one, reuniting for, we don't really know how long it's been. Although Milchick says it's been 5 months.
If Milkshake says it, I believe it.
Yeah, I don't. Because that stuff about how the Audis are like
Heroes
and spokespeople for any
equality.
Yeah. Not buying it. And that newspaper article looked fake as heck, and they don't zoom in on it, and he just puts that away quick. That looks super fake. I don't think any of that's real.
And I was hoping someone would question it amongst their group, because out of all of them, there's only one of them that would have gotten enough notoriety and publicity to cause any sort of, is this ethical or not?
That would have been Helly.
Yep. And she makes up the lamest thing ever.
Yeah, she lies. We'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, I don't know that I believe this story, because I think in a lot of ways it seems like they're just trying to satisfy these base needs that a lot of people have in our culture today. They need to feel seen. They need to feel significant. And that's exactly what they're making the innies feel, right? Mm-hmm. That's how they're basically talking them down. My question is why can't they just do away with them? Why don't they just fire them? Why are they holding on to them? That's the real question. I think a lot of that question is centered around the character of his wife too, the wellness lady. What was it, Grace? No,
Miss Casey's what I call her.
Miss Casey. A lot of that centers around that character, because I have all the questions. Did she really die? And all that's left of her is this severed consciousness? Or are they keeping her body alive somewhere? I think that's a big part of the ongoing story. It's a big part of the puzzle. Because I think if we knew what exactly happened to his wife, we might know a little bit more about all their situations.
My Kier-spiracy is, it's really the government. And that they staged her death so she could be a part of their entity that is disguised as a company.
Boring.
Sometimes the truth is boring, but
what if instead of the government, it's just a corporate entity? That's more boring.
Corporate entity that's behind the government.
Yeah. Then he sits all the people down after they've kind of gotten back together and they've talked things out. Irv not having it. Irv's very sad.
Oh yeah,
because Irv is kind of realizing that so he gets out in the real world and realizes what some of them had already come around to, which is the any version of them is a different person, and therefore, here's the really fascinating part of this, Cody, is therefore a life. So when Irv is saying, I'm just gonna leave, Dylan instinctively understands what he's saying. Like, dude, you're not just talking about quitting your job. You're killing yourself. And he's not wrong. Like, that separate consciousness is now alive. But there's some really interesting questions that you can approach some kind of hot button political issues.
I was going to say there's some ethical dilemmas, and if you consider it really a whole nother life, or if it's just like a fragment of your memory and consciousness that I can delete that, in which, I mean, people do that constantly with misuse of chemicals and stuff like that.
And I'm not just talking about like abortion, but I'm talking about genetic stuff, genetic testing, assisted suicide, all sorts of things that kind of come under this umbrella of what it is we're exploring here. Mm-hmm. What is life? What is consciousness? And how much is it worth? You know?
Yeah.
This is some really, really interesting stuff and some really serious stuff. But Milchick has them sit all down after they've kind of regained, told everyone what was going on. They told each other their experiences. Helly lied. And then they watched
Rude.
this video that was so much like the Jurassic Park DNA video.
Oh, I love the Jurassic Park DNA video, but I thought of Rudolph because it was stop motion
claymation.
Heavy stop motion, and I loved it.
Lumen is listening, Cody.
I lost it with the water towers, and that's a big splash.
But it's this like over the top corny video to make these people believe that Lumen is listening to the concerns and trying to change. Then Milchek comes in and says, I should have mentioned this before the Irv part, but he comes in and he says, like, look, y'all get to choose. At the end of the day today, you can choose to leave and not come back, or you can choose to stay. No hard feelings. But this all feels like a ruse, right?
So I really wondered what would happen if one of them chose to leave. Just because, I feel they would still be coming back, but then how do you explain that?
Yeah.
You would have to explain away, oh, no, you're outie, and you got to have a conversation, and you both said it's better down here. Yeah. Or something ridiculous like that.
Remember, as far as the honesty of Milchek, or if any of this being presented is real, Cobell said something in season 1 that was along the lines of the best way to tame a prisoner is to let him believe he's free.
Mm-hmm.
She said something along those lines. I'm paraphrasing, but I think that was the line. So he leaves. That's when the group kind of huddles. They're talking about everything that they went through. Helly lies. Irv is
heartbroken.
He kind of leaves. That's when Dylan follows him and wants to get more of the story. I should note in the video, it was hilarious. There's actually an important section in there where it says the three themes of the macro data uprising: righteous anger, inspiration, and love. And when they show the claymation figures of Mark S. and Helly kissing, Dylan's like, what the heck?
Dylan is easily one of the best comedic inputs in the show, just because he's quirky in a very millennial or zillennial sort of way, and I love it.
Well, and that goes back again to the design of the show. I think the designers, the creators of the show need to be praised, because I feel like this is obviously a thought they had. This was something they wanted to do. This story is a dark story, super dark. But what if we put in Mark S., played by
Adam Scott.
Yeah, Adam Scott is largely a comedic actor. He can be serious. He's been in some serious things, but largely he's in funny stuff because he's a funny guy. So you got this guy playing Mark S. You got Dylan, that actor's hilarious.
Zach Cherry.
John Turturro's just a fantastic actor. He can be anything, but he's been in a lot of comedic stuff. You got Ben Stiller producing it. There's a lot of comic elements of this, and I think it's intentional to create this kind of. I don't know if the goal is to create some sort of mental cognitive dissonance that's manufactured to try and make the viewer feel this weird awkwardness of a severed consciousness. But just the fact that there's so much funny stuff in this inside this dark, dark story, I have to feel that's intentional.
Yeah, I feel like it's intentional just because it shows you kind of the poles of where life is at times we got these funny moments and then it gets really dark and it creates a dramatic shift and you feel it as the show kind of ebbs and flows back and forth. And I appreciate it.
Yeah. Dylan gets pulled away by Milchek, and Milchek's not done trying to convince each one of them as a unit and individually that, hey, things are going to be better for you guys, and we're listening. And so he pulls Dylan aside, who Dylan has found out he has a family, that his Audi has a family. And Milchek's using that to his advantage, so he shows him a blueprint of a family visitation suite, which my wife got a kick out of. She like openly laughed at the ergonomic seating and whatnot. But yeah, like promising these visits with a wife and kid he doesn't really know.
He doesn't know, and that he needs to keep it a secret because the others don't have anyone else in their lives.
We don't want them to be jealous, which is like the ultimate line of, like, you're lying.
Milkshake, I'm not trusting you.
Helly agrees to help Mark with his quest to find Miss Casey, but she's in a different mental space than he is for sure. While Mark is kind of sensitive to all of it and feels like he's doing it for his Audi,
Yes.
who has no idea, she says, and she kind of rather forcefully is like, we don't owe them anything. We don't owe our Audis anything. Kind of separating while he's kind of wanting to empathize with that part. She's like, no, cut it off. I'm going to help you, but don't do it for them.
Well, she definitely has a unique situation. She has been denied by her Audi before.
Yeah.
She tried to quit. And then she also happens to be the heiress to be.
Yeah. Why do you think she didn't tell them?
Oh, that's a good question. I think she feels that if they found out that she is technically the CEO's daughter, that she would be an outcast.
Yeah.
To the rest of the group, that like, you should have some pull. Why aren't you doing anything, any or Audi versions of you? Now,
the music gets cheery as they all sit down in the office at the end, back in macro data refinement.
Mm-hmm.
And it's got like the band's back together kind of feel, which is because Dylan ends up having convinced Irv. We find that out at the very end as Irv walks in last. And they sit down at the computer and they start doing their weird Lumen stuff. And Mark does the things with the numbers that he does. And we get to look at the screen. He's doing the same scrolling and clicking thing on something named Cold Harbor. And as he's guiding some of the numbers into the places he wants to, there's like these. Did you see the fluttering?
Yep.
And then there was another screen in there in the frame that had vital signs on it, like that you would have like a real, like, you know, in a hospital. And the picture of Gemma is her name, but it's Miss Casey. So what do you? I don't even have a theory. I have no idea where this is going, but what is it they're suggesting he's doing with the numbers? What is it? Do you think he's like keeping her alive? What is going on?
Potentially. But, that there's still not enough information for me to go full blown Kier-spiracy on that. I'm baffled.
Yeah. Yep. That's pretty much the episode. Let's get into our awards for the episode. The Changes Award goes to the character who goes through like the most progress, the most change in an episode. I'm going to give it to Irv. I think poor Irv goes through the ringer of this episode.
I am going to go close and go Dylan. Dylan lays it all out there, which is very un-Dylan-like, and that he basically makes Irv feel like he's one of the most important people in Dylan's life. And so, yeah, I'm going Dylan.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good pick. I'm going to go with Dylan as my winner of the episode. The winner of the episode. Dylan is like, first of all, he seems unfazed. So like Mark S comes back and he's chaotic from his walking in the outside world. Helly is like lying about what she experienced. She's
watching
not even,
the Animal Planet and wearing animal shirts.
She's not even willing to do. Irv is just crushed. His soul's crushed. And then there's Dylan, who's like, "What's the problem, man?
I need a new belt."
Yeah, I need to talk to Milkcheck. And like he's going to come to fisticuffs
over the belt.
So Dylan, man, Dylan is like, he's the rock that everybody needs in their group of friends. The guy who's like, you just went through something highly chaotic and vaguely supernatural and weird. And he's just like, hey, man, I need to talk to that guy about my belt.
Yes.
Also, Irv, don't do this. Like, everyone needs this super grounded dude.
Also, I loved it when he clears off the Italian guy's stuff off his desk.
The weird gift.
Yeah.
Like the wood carving. He had a wood carving. That dude is not from the 20th century.
I love to think that there's a portion of like all the enlightened people throughout history are just hanging out here.
Yeah. I think this dude, seriously, you said the Enlightenment. I think this dude is from Florence, Italy in like the 17th century. I don't know. I could be wrong. But
fingers crossed.
So weird. Everything about that guy was weird. Who's the loser? Who do you have the loser of the episode?
So loser has to be Harmony Coble or Cobell.
Yeah, she's not in it.
Yeah. Patricia Arquette, you lost out on an episode.
My loser of the episode, Cody, is all the viewers. Not because this was a bad episode, because it was all innies. All innies. It's an all innie episode, which I don't think they've done before. Where they really, in fact, I'm pretty sure they haven't, because I read an interview where the director was talking about how, or the showrunner was talking about how he'd wanted to do this in the first season, but just hadn't presented himself, because this would be more indicative of how they're seeing life. Like, instead of switching back and switching back and forth and seeing both sides, they wouldn't have that. And so I'm pretty sure this is the first time they did this. But because they did this, we get no brother-in-law.
We don't.
Which is the best character in the whole show, in my opinion. I am here for Mark S.'s brother-in-law. He's hilarious. When they did the last season on Severance, the recap, where he's agonizing over to lean the book up against the wall, or his book being like the catalyst for all this was hilarious too in the first season. And so I'm just very sad that I have to wait another episode to see where Mark S.'s brother-in-law is and how he's doing.
Okay, since you deposited this from Spiracy and also brought up your favorite character, Kier-spiracies. Now I'm going off on other shows. How dare I? My favorite character from the first season was Bert. Because I love Christopher Walken. But what if that's short for Albert Einstein?
Oh, you think he's like okay, well, that would fit into my Kier-spiracy of them being from all different times.
So I was piggybacking off of that and also your favorite character and switching it to my favorite character and trying to see how he fits in.
Yeah. Interesting stuff. Okay. How many weird wooden head sculptures are you giving this out of 10 this episode?
8.
Yeah.
Like, definitely left me wanting some more, but it also satisfied enough that it's like, we're in this good balance. It's solid.
Yeah, it is. It was a really good episode, and I'm going to give it an 8 too. Not because I don't think it was worthy of a higher score, because I can feel them holding back. It's just the first episode of the second season.
Yes.
And you could feel like, I know there was this feeling from viewers like, I want all the answers now. But it was like you could feel it holding back and just easing us back in. And the ending to this episode was perfect. Like the band's back together, the music's like kind of the happy music's playing as they sit back down, and then with the instant screenshots of things that were mixing in there at the end there, just enough intrigue. But I thought this was a really good first episode to a season. I think that's a good way to do it. But I'm in. This is a great show, and I'm excited we're going to get to talk about it.
Oh, my mind is running with all the thoughts about this show, and I'm so excited for episode 2 to see if any of those thoughts are even in the ballpark.
As always, at the end of this episode and every episode, we're going to say thank you for listening, but also hello to Ben Stiller.
Yes,
Ben. Who is our friend on Blue Sky, who probably doesn't even know it. But we're going to continue to say hi to him in the hopes that one day he may just listen to one of these, and that we may get him on the pod.
Oh, that would be epic.
It'd be so fun to get Ben on the watch along to talk about this show. I'm sure he'd have to be cagey.
I would channel my inner Audi. So then I could be fast hitting with all the questions.
Ben, could you come on the pod if we agreed to sever our consciousness? Sounds like a deal we could make. Thank you so much for listening to Watch Alongs. We hope you're excited about this season of Severance and excited about listening along to each episode as we go. Thank you so much. Make sure and subscribe to Pop Culture Pastor so you don't miss a single episode, and give us all the good ratings. That's something nice you could do too. Love you guys. Until next time, don't quit the Lumen. Don't do it, Irv. Don't leave. You're not talking about quitting your job, Cody.
Exactly.